So I've been playing ArcRaiders for a few days now, and I am 100% addicted to this game. I love niche extraction games like Dark and Darker and the Cycle Frontier when that was still around, but ArcRaiders scratches a particular itch for fans of the extraction shooter genre who may not be the most competitive or don't have tons of time to dedicate to learning stats and mechanics. Throughout my time playing ArcRaiders, I've mainly been focusing on playing solo and learning the game on my own. But recently I've been hearing from players that solo play can be extremely difficult and almost impossible to progress. And I think the reason why is because there's a lot of new players to the extraction genre who may not know this fundamental truth.
Well, I guess you just have to be prepared to die.
So in this video, I'm going to share 10 personal tips that I use when playing ArcRaiders solo, covering a mix of game mechanics and some soft skills that'll make you more successful as a solo player. And with that, you guys, let's dive into the video. Starting off, it's important to pick your fights carefully, and the reason why is because sometimes whoever shoots first ends up losing, especially if a fight doesn't end quick. Noise does carry in ArcRaiders, and when gunfights break out, other raiders may try to seek out a fight if they're nearby. If you're somebody who's more PvE focused and gets frustrated with PvP, you'll want to limit when you choose to fight Arc and ensure that you're not stuck fighting a Wasp or Hornet for too long. We'll talk more about how to end fights quicker later on in the video. But tip number one just boils down to the more noise you make, the more attention you'll end up receiving both from players and Arc, and sometimes that's not exactly for the better. If you are a more PvE-centric solo player, you'll want to limit that noise as much as possible and play more like a rat. Moving on to tip number two, you want to make sure you're carrying viable PvE weapons. This one's a no-brainer, pretty straightforward, but as a solo player, you want to make sure that you try to diversify your firepower in order to survive a fight against Arc or players. Try to avoid using only weak Arc penetration weapons. They may be good against other players, but if you find yourself overwhelmed with Arc, you might just end up riding the lightning from a Hornet. Some examples of weapons that I've personally used is the Anvil and Stitcher, which is my preferred loadout, or I'll switch out the Anvil for a Faro if I, can't afford to make an Anvil or can't buy one. The Anvil is a bit of a better Faro. While the Faro has greater range, they both do great damage against Arc, but the Anvil is able to carry 6 bullets instead of the Faro, which requires you to rechamber a new bullet. Outside of the Anvil and Stitcher, you can also run the Anvil and Rattler if you want more damage against Arc. And for you players that have access to higher tier weapons, I personally would be using the Batina and Bobcat. I mean, ultimately, this boils down to whatever you prefer to use and what you like using, but the bottom line here is you want to have at least one weapon that's geared towards fighting Arc, and the other that's better for PvP. The next tip I have is to utilize the free loadout if you need to. For any of you broke boys or players with severe gear fear, you may just want to consider using your free loadout to help grow your stash. Just before entering a raid, you can select the free loadout option and you'll receive a random weapon and set of items for your raid. If you successfully extract, you'll receive everything as usual. The free loadout kit does not come with a safe pocket though, so if you do die using the free loadout, you won't have a chance to save 1 or 2 high value items. Next up, try and make friends with raiders, and don't seek out engagements when you don't need to. Even though you're playing as a solo, there's a lot of friendly people that you'll run into topside, and compared to other games like Dark and Darker or Tarkov, I feel like there's more friendly players than other extraction games I've played. It may be worth it to temporarily partner up with randoms that you run into topside, or work together to try and take down tougher Arc like the Leaper or Queen. But if you're a real piece of shit, you can always stab them in the back when they're not looking. Shouldn't have made noise. Said.
Do that again.
Honestly, valid.
Yo, we're the same color, bro. Represent the colors, dude. Come on. We don't kill our own race. Don't you know? Didn't you read the manual?
I don't know. Do I need a syringe to revive you? How do I revive you? Alright, well, you've inspired me. I'm going to, if I see the green and friendly in the future, you've inspired me to be better.
God bless you, sir. Enjoy my loot. The fifth tip I have is stamina management, and this is probably the most important tip for new players to ArcRaiders. Stamina management is extremely important, whether it's running or vaulting, and if you're in a sticky situation where you need to get out quick but you don't have the stamina to run, you're kind of SOL. The first thing to remember with stamina management is to try and run without your weapon out. Certain weapons have an agility number tied to them, and heavier weapons will impact your stamina. A good rule of thumb is when you're not actively fighting or you just got into a raid, it's best to holster your weapon and just run around without having it out. But on top of that, it's also important to choose when you really need to run. I typically try and save my stamina as much as possible so that I can run when I'm in a firefight or do a combat roll if I really need to get out of a sticky situation. And outside of that, I'm just walking around the map. This is going to take some time for you to get familiar with stamina and just when you feel like you're going to need to run versus when you need to save that stamina. But really, if there's one thing you want to walk away with from this tip, it's just try not to run with your weapon out. The last thing I want to mention with regards to stamina management is it's definitely worth teching up into that mobility branch of the tech tree for increased stamina and reduced stamina cost. For any players that may be confused on what they should be speccing into with the tech tree, I would definitely recommend first starting off with mobility and getting the increased stamina and reduced stamina costs whenever possible. We'll touch on the tech tree again in another tip later on in the video. Next, we have getting over gear fear. This is probably the biggest soft skill that I think players in a bunch of different games have issues with. But me personally, I play a game called Foxhole on the channel where gear fear is also extremely common. And in plenty of other games, it's easy to fall into this trap of not wanting to use your most expensive or high rarity weapons due to its cost or the time it takes to grind for. But there are ways you can get over that gear fear. And the best way is to start off with purchasing what you feel like you can afford to lose and get comfortable losing that gear. Over time, you'll eventually not really care too much when you die with that gear. You'll slowly work your way up to more and more expensive gear and get comfortable losing that as well. Now, that doesn't mean go and lose your gear in fights where you know you can't win. It just means take fights more strategically and know that you can always get that gear back as easily as you lose it. And remember, your gear does absolutely nothing when it sits in your stash. You want to make sure you're using it to achieve a goal. Maybe you need a stronger weapon to take out a deadlier arc. Maybe you're saving a particular weapon for a group raid. And that's all fine, but just don't get in the habit of leaving your weapons to rot in your stash. When it comes to solo players, we need the edge in any way possible, which means stronger weapons, stronger shields, etc. Next, it's important to end fights as quickly as possible. And I mentioned this earlier about, wanting to try and end fights quickly, but how do you do that in ArcRaiders? The best method is to use weapons that can knock out your opponent's shield in a single hit. Weapons like Faro or the Anvil would be perfect for this. After that, you want to switch over to your SMG or some other high fire rate weapon so that you can do damage quickly. Another thing to remember with this though is you don't want to let third partiers take advantage of your lower health after you've just finished killing another player. Always remember to recharge those shields, restore your health, and fight the urge to loot just a little bit longer. Personally, after a fight, I make sure to do all of that, and I also make sure that both my weapons are reloaded and ready to go. And doing simple things like that has actually saved my ass more than once. The next tip is to go into each raid with a plan. And maybe it's something specific, like a piece of loot you're looking for, or maybe it's a quest that you're trying to complete. Either way, you want to focus on that objective, get it done quick, and then leave as quickly as possible. This is a pretty quick tip, but it basically boils down to the more time you spend in a raid, the higher the chance you'll end up dead. Going back to the tech tree, as a solo player, it may be worth teching into that ability to craft whenever you're topside. There's this useful perk in the survivalist part of the tech tree, which allows you to craft healing items early on. It's super useful if you run out of shield recharges, which are usually the first to go, but if you salvage items during your raid in order to craft these healing items, it'll allow you to survive for much longer. And again, I've personally used this and it's helped me out plenty of times, so definitely consider teching into that ability. The last tip I have for you all is to leverage your seeds and the refinery. If you take a look at the traders, Celeste will give you a lot of helpful materials in exchange for seeds. You'll end up receiving seeds from the chicken at your hideout, but you can also find seeds out on your raids. Instead of needing to find these materials on raids, you can save yourself the trouble by trading these seeds to Celeste, and this can be used to either upgrade workbenches or create new items for you to take on raids. Whenever you build the refinery in your hideout, you can also use that to make specialty parts, and those will also be used for crafting weapons or upgrades. And as a solo, you want to make sure you're using both so that you can have better quality gear and beat out your opponents. And those were 10 tips for all you solo players and ArcRaiders. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and maybe learned something new. If any of you have tips that you'd give to newer players to the game, make sure you leave them down in the comment section below so folks can read them and learn from them as well. And while you're at it, consider leaving a like and subscribe for more ArcRaiders related content. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you all in the next one.
Suck a cock, penis in a cop car. With a penis in my mouth, I'm sucking cock, yeah. If you ever met a penis sucking faggot, I ain't licking pussy, I'm sucking cock. His penis told me, promise you gon' squeeze me. Let me jizz up on your face the day you jerk me.